Well, welcome to the debut episode of Torch Talk with me, Jeremiah, also with Myriah. Hi, Myriah.
Hello there. How's it going?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good.
I'm excited to give this podcast a try, and we thank, of course, in advance anyone who watches this or listens to this, gives it a shot. Mariah and I have been friends for many years and recently discovered that we both really were huge super fans of Smallville, and we decided we both wanted to rewatch it. So why not just do a podcast? So that's what we're doing today.
Yeah, multitask with that rewatch.
Yeah. Why not? Why not turn something we could just do for fun into something that's media related work? Why
Yeah,
not?
that seems like right up our
It's,
alley.
it's very on brand for us, I will say, just as individuals and then collectively as well. Today, in our debut episode, you guessed it, we are talking about the pilot episode, the first episode, season one, episode one of Smallville. It aired on the WB, originally airing on October 16th, 2001, just about a month after 9/11. So a lot of positive vibes pointed at Smallville to get lots of viewers tuning in. At the time, it was one of the most expensive television pilots ever produced, and people showed up to watch this thing when it aired, though I don't think anyone would be expecting now, 25 years later, that the show would have so much of a following, literally a generation later.
That's wild. A generation later. That's also, I don't think I realized it was 2001. So that shows how much I did my homework, but that's amazing.
Yeah, pretty wild, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. Trying to
So
think.
we're going to just jump into the recap unless you have something you would like to say. Did you like this? I guess let's start with some general questions here. When's the last time you watched the pilot episode of Smallville before we get to the recap?
So I have started rewatches probably at least 5 times and gave up because I have to be in the right emotional state to watch Smallville because
Okay.
it's so like the whole time I'm just on I don't remember anything so like I can't remember what happened. And so I have watched it probably like I think a year and a half ago I tried to rewatch it again and then my fiance at the time just took off without me and I gave up. So it has been more recent than some of the episodes.
Okay. I'm the same way. Like I feel like I've seen this a lot because of my attempted rewatches. I usually don't get through like season two before I get
Yeah.
too busy with something else. And so I've seen this one probably a lot, though I did notice things that I didn't notice before, which I think is always the sign of a good show. Um, I think what's weird to me and one of my favorite things about Smallville is it debuted when I was a college freshman, like 6 weeks into my college career. And by the time Smallville ended, I was teaching college. I had a son of my own. Life was totally different, but Smallville was one of the few constants in that decade of life between 18 and like 28 for me. So this has a very special meaning. I remember watching this in the dorm my freshman year of college with my roommates. I don't remember watching any other episodes. I know that I did, but I don't have like vivid memories of them. But this
So
this
you
this
watched the pilot, like you were waiting for the pilot and you
yeah, like
watched the pilot.
on
Okay.
traditional television, like, oh, this is on channel 12. We got to be there at 8 p.m. or whenever it aired. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did I was in the ripe old age of like 9 in 2001, I think. So I did not watch it. But I discovered it in high school. So I had to like I would just binge over Christmas break, my whole family, like my mom, my sister, and I would just binge through the night, like probably 3 seasons over one Christmas break. So I caught up quickly, but I did not start with Smallville.
Gotcha. Gotcha. If you were nine, to transition us into the recap, that means you were the same age as young Lex Luthor in that helicopter. So there you go. You're nine, he's nine. There's our connection. Smallville's
Okay.
weird for me because the actors obviously are older than what they're playing. So I'm the same age as a lot of those actors, but high school was a recent memory when this aired. So I'm like, I remember high school. High school is rough, and this captures that very well. Are you ready to get into our recap?
Yeah.
All
Let's-
right. We begin in Taylor Swift style back in 1989, back when Smallville is the cream corn capital of the world. It will be replaced by like the meteor shower capital of the world after our flashback. We see all sorts of stuff in this flashback. Most notably, we have the very famous meteor shower that gives us uh, Clark Kent's arrival, that gives us all the meteor rocks that become kryptonite that lead to the freaks of the week. And the meteor shower, most notably perhaps, takes the life of Lana's parents. For what is, and this is a weird way to start, but it's what I think most about that first segment, the most unintentionally funny TV death of all time. They're just looking up. They're not bracing for impact. They're not running for cover. I went frame by frame, Mariah, just to see. Is there like a brief moment? No, they just look at it. Like when
yeah.
it's like, a foot from their face.
Mhm. Yeah, they didn't. Like, no, and truth is, no one ran for
Funny.
cover. Like, no one was running for cover in that whole scene. Like, and I understand that, like, you don't have a lot of time, but you would want to at least be like en route to safety. But no one, like, this can't happen in Smallville. What is this? They didn't know what this was. Like, anyway,
Yeah,
that was
I was thinking about that too, because after they get blowed up, everybody runs for cover because those poor Lang people. I guess you have tornado drills, you have fire drills, you don't have meteor shower drills.
you don't, but I just
You're,
feel
you're
like
in Kansas.
if I saw large things coming toward me, I would run. Like that's survival. But again, there would be no. There could still be an episode even if people had run. Like the meteor could have still gotten them, and that could add some survival instincts.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I digress.
Yeah, I was so distracted by that I could hardly pay attention to anything else that happened in that 1989 scenario. But we do see Jeremy attached to a post as the Smallville Crow. We see young Lex, age 9, I just mentioned. He loses his hair because of the meteor shower. I don't know how that works. It
Is
just
that
does.
what happened?
I don't know. I don't know. It never made sense to me. Like that's how he's affected by.
He still had a little tuft of hair. Like did the little tuft fall out later, or I had a question about the two tufts afterward. I'm like,
I think
huh.
it's just for people watching this on TV who might think, is that a different kid? Like that you're sure it's the same kid. And
Yeah.
obviously most famously from this flashback we get the Kent family. They find he's 3 years oldish, not a baby, but a little boy, Clark Kent. And we have, I think, some very sweet dialogue from Martha, played by Annette O'Toole, who was Lana in Superman 3, the Christopher Reeve movie. So she's kind of stunt casting. Let's get someone who's been in a Superman movie. Now she's older. She can be Superman's mom. Kind of cool. She says, he found us. And that's sort of their rationale for for taking this kid that they found in the cornfield and raising him as their own. This goes to commercial. There's no opening credits. There's no "Somebody Save Me" in the pilot, at least on the version that I streamed, because it's a few minutes longer than a normal episode, and it sort of spoils what happens in the episode if you watch the opening credits. So
Okay.
nobody gets opening credits. Kind of cool. After that, we'll call it a commercial break. We now jump forward 12 years later. It's now 2001. Clark Kent is in high school. He misses the bus, but he can outrun the bus. We meet Lana, we meet Whitney, Chloe, and Pete all at the high school. We get our sort of first introduction to a clumsy Clark Kent. He falls down, he can't hold on to his books. We find out that it's Lana's kryptonite necklace. that is keeping him at a distance and making him feel weak. So he's not a nerd. He's not clumsy. It's the kryptonite necklace. That's kind of a cool thing.
You know,
We are introduced, like I said, to all sorts of characters at the high school. Most notably, we get Pete and Chloe. Chloe invented for the show, and we get to see the Wall of Weird in this second segment.
okay. So this one, I I like how the Wall of Weird has changed locations throughout which I understand they do that in pilot, like the spaceship we'll talk about later. But the Wall of Weird is just out in the open, I feel like. Maybe I'm wrong. Like I didn't go through and watch the other episodes, but I don't feel like you had to go into a weird closet to find a Wall of Weird. Also, what does the janitor think about this? Is one of my thoughts. Like, could you imagine being like, I'm gonna go clean and be like, this girl might need some mental help. Like, is she gonna kill these people? Are they anyway? That's my thought with that one.
It is kind of strange, no pun intended, but I think she's the editor of the paper, and it's just what that girl does. It's all newspaper stuff, and nobody even probably pays attention to what the articles are or what the headlines are. And so there's probably just like, hey, it's what the newspaper staff's doing over there, and they just kind of let it slide. And as you know, because you were a part of my newspaper staff years ago, I advise student media. I definitely know that you can put almost anything on a wall, and except for that small knit community of people, no one's going to notice or care. So I totally buy that the Wall of Weird is like 6 feet from the front door of the newspaper office, at least in the pilot.
Okay.
Um,
But it wasn't. And the pilot was it not in a room. Like they put it in a room to make it like she had to reveal it to Clark.
yeah, she goes to like the second room. Like
I
it's
just
not in the front room,
I
it's
just
in like the
I
back
think
room.
James would question the Wall of Weird. It's a little over the top, and I say that as someone who loves over the top core, but like this Wall of Weird is anyway. That's my one. I have fewer critiques for this than I did for our test episode, Jeremiah. So like that is one thing I'm like, huh, this is an interesting placement for a very large wall.
Speaking of interesting placement, I have a question for you. We also see somewhere around this first segment of the show Tom Welling's Clark Kent in the barn, which is just always a good feeling to see Clark in the barn. But we see that he has a telescope, and yes, sometimes he's looking at the stars and he's stargazing, but also sometimes he's spying on Lana. And if he wasn't, Tom Welling, if he was an ugly dude, wouldn't this be super creepy? Like I feel like he gets some sort of a free pass from viewers because we know that's Clark Kent and we know he's a good guy and we don't really think about it. But now as an adult, I'm like, that's super weird.
But at least he's not like spying into her room or like of her and Nell at the dinner table. Like of all the creeper moves to do, it is Tom Welling. He can spy on anyone ever, period, and no one's gonna complain. But also it could be worse. Like it is the outside of her home on a porch, like it's not even like she has a hot tub on the porch or something. Like it's just a porch. So like it could be significantly worse if you're gonna be like who they're trying to portray him as is this weird old kid that has a crush on her and can't, you know. So for even who they're trying to portray him as, this could be worse. I have no problem with Clark spying on Lana because how would you get this longing and this pining after Lana that he carries with him, and then the whole arc, which is the whole arc of Smallville to me. We will fight about this later, but that's the storyline. Him and Lana. It could be called Clark and Lana. Lois can kiss my butt, but we've talked about this many times. So I'm just saying this sets it up beautifully.
Yeah, I do think, there's no question that his whole dream is really just to be with Lana, and that does a lot of storytelling with him sort of looking at her longingly. I think that's a good word choice there. Also in this act, we'll call it an act of the show. We also have Lex speeding down the highway in the Porsche. He wrecks his car into Clark. He's drowning. Clark swims in, rips open the top of the Porsche, saves his life. Um, We get CPR mouth to mouth with our two male leads within the first 15 minutes of the first episode. And then we have also a very overprotective, maybe not overprotective, at least protective, Jonathan Kent showing up saying, who is the maniac driving that car? And Lex is ready to just say, it was me, sir. And I'll give you a free truck later. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So that sort of ends that second segment. Anything to add about that?
No, I'm good. I have a lot of thoughts. Obviously, that's why we're here. But we're never gonna get through it if I give all my thoughts, and it'll just be the Mariah like critiquing. Whenever my thoughts are more than critiquing.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I do like the sort of Easter egg of the EMTs, medical professionals, whoever pulls them to safety and wraps them in red blankets that we sort of have Clark in a red blanket that's kind of like a cape. I don't know why Lex doesn't get like a different color cape because then you also have Lex in a red towel. I don't know. But I thought that was a nice touch for Clark to be sitting there in what could really be a Superman cape. Good choice. Good choice there. But yeah, that's my big takeaway there. In the next act, we have
Oh, I
um,
forgot to grab a prop, so I'm gonna cut my camera and go grab a prop while you're doing this next act because it's
okay.
important. Okay.
So after saving Lex from the bridge accident, Clark becomes filled with questions. I guess he knew that he was super fast because he was able to outrun the school bus to get to school, but he did not know he was strong enough to survive being hit by a car. He asked his parents difficult questions, and Jonathan makes the sort of tough call to reveal his true identity, that he was from another planet, that his parents were not from around here. He shows Clark the spaceship. For my money, one of the worst spaceship designs I've ever seen. And we have Clark sort of overwhelmed by the situation. And that segment of the show ends with Jonathan yelling, Clark, because Clark has sped away. And he's an angsty parent who just wants to be there for
What,
his son.
what you have overlooked was the most, maybe you didn't while I was in my room grabbing the prop, but it
That's
was
what I say.
the
You
most
left the room. Who are you to say?
where he put his arm in the shredder thingy and then
Ah,
pulls it in. He has so much angst, and I love it. Did you already address this? This one is just
no.
my favorite. Like, I don't know what it is about that scene, but it is one of my like top 10 favorite scenes in Smallville. He's like, is this normal? And his like shirt
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
shredded. And his dad is like, freaking out. He's been a farm boy Superman his whole life. Like, obviously, he's had many accidents that should have been accidents. Like, he's not suicidal. He's not just putting his arm in there. But anyway, I just that was so epic. That's one of my when we get to the quote part. That's one of mine. Like I couldn't pick because this one was great. But you have to talk about that scene because like how do we get to find his weird alien spaceship? Oh, he sticks his hand in a shredder thingy.
Yeah, in a wood chipper.
That thing, yeah.
And I didn't mention it because that stresses me out beyond belief. Like I watched it back many times in the rewatch because John Snyder, who plays Jonathan Kent of Dukes of Hazzard fame before this, he's throwing branches and stuff into the wood chipper to let the audience see that it is a functional, at least appears to be functional wood chipper. And I don't care how unplugged that thing was or how a wood chipper works. I was just like, don't do it. What if? Maybe it has like residual power, or I don't know how a wood chipper works, but it really stressed me out, and that's why I didn't mention it.
Okay, that's fair, but I mean, also like you later in a Smallville episode, there's an actual bullet in a gun that's supposed to be shooting blanks on a movie set, saying that that's something that could happen. So, they're risking their lives. You risk it for the biscuit. Like that's what they're doing.
That's true. That's
We have
true.
to have that dramatic scene.
And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I think this was Tom Welling's first acting gig. He had not surprisingly been a model before this, and ends up realizing that he can have a much more long-term career as an actor than a model. And so, you got to imagine this is like, if not day one, at least week 1 or 2. Okay, now we're going to unplug the wood chipper and you stick your arm in there, but not too far because there's still blades in there, even if it's off. What a crazy day of work.
Was it his first? Cheaper by the Dozen was after.
It was after. I
Okay.
think it's his first. I think he talked a little bit about that on their podcast, the Talkville, recently. So, um,
Yeah, that'd be
we
a day one.
what?
That'd just be a very intense day one, but yeah.
Yeah, but I know that Michael Rosenbaum is underwater and doing all that stunt too, and he apparently almost, or at least felt like he was going to get fired because he was too stressed because they really put him underwater to do
Oh,
the
yeah.
the Porsche rescue, and he was like, I can't handle this.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. I would,
um,
yeah, that's a very stressful episode for all involved.
yeah, and very few seconds of screen time for what I'm sure was a very intense, stunt. Anyway, we come back from the commercial break. Clark is sped away. Jeremy has emerged and is now taking revenge on the jocks that were present about 12 years ago. He is not aged a day. He has some electricity powers, and he is making everybody's day worse by, I guess, not killing people because they do wheel the guy out into an ambulance with like a breathing mask on. So these jocks are surviving the attacks from Jeremy, but he's our freak of the week, first one ever. Um, and also in this segment, we have Whitney, who I think is a fantastic actor and probably a worthless character, decides to put the kryptonite necklace on Clark and also make him the Smallville Crow for this season. What a coincidence that he decides to put the necklace uh,
Right.
on Clark. The one
Like
thing
you
that
would
would hurt
put
him.
your girlfriend's necklace on. Yeah.
Yeah, because the line is something like, well, if you like her so much here, you can have this. And it's like,
Yeah. It's
okay. I mean, it obviously helps the plot move along, but
true.
that's the only, for a show as convoluted as this could be, I think it holds together except for that. But then we have Clark in what I think is the iconic image from this episode. He's in, oh, there you go. There you go.
This was my first Funko, and really, I don't care that much about them. Don't tell my little sister, but this guy has been with me for a very long time, and I love him more than I love a lot of objects that I have. Um, it's
Gotcha.
not my only Funko, but it is the iconic one. So you can continue
It
while I
is
show
it
off.
is very iconic. Just him on the fence post. It's you were 9, but if you remember how the show was marketed in those early weeks, it was a lot of posters and billboards with Tom Welling with the S painted on him in his underpants. That's gonna get viewers right there. I
We
know that
got
Michael Rosenbaum, in many a podcast episode, has teased them that they waited about 15 minutes into the very first episode before they found a reason for him to have his shirt off and be in his underwear. But we have Clark in the cornfield. He's confronted by Jeremy and then saved. I forgot he was saved by Lex. They had to have something else for Lex to do. He shows up and lets Clark down. Clark immediately decides to go stop Jeremy because he's going to hurt people at the school dance. What a guy, Clark Kent. His clothes are conveniently right next to the Scarecrow post. The mean high school bullies didn't take his clothes with them. They left them 3 feet away from the Scarecrow post because they're only kind of mean.
yeah, yeah, that's totally how that works.
And the heroics happen. Clark obviously defeats his enemy. Jeremy kind of snaps out of it after crashing a truck into Clark and sort of jolting him with his electricity powers. And we have one of my favorite lines, which Clark just says, "I'm Clark Kent. You're in Smallville," which they would use for
Okay.
many a commercial moving forward. But I think it really works. You're not in Metropolis. He's not Superman. This is Clark
I'm sorry.
Kent, and you're in
I
Smallville.
I didn't see or notice marketing because I would have been 9. So I did not realize it. So that's an extra layer that I didn't even have, but I love it.
Yeah, yeah, it works. It
Someone has a
works. And then we have our epic conclusion to the first episode. The episode wraps up with the very famous dance. Clark, as he does, we talked about this earlier, is watching Lana from a distance, knowing they can't really be together for a variety of reasons. But he is daydreaming about sharing a dance with her before reality sets back in. And it ends the pilot on this sort of bittersweet note of him wishing he was with Lana. For a split second, you do think maybe she did show up because they had a moment in her parents' graveyard that sort of connected them. But then um, we find out that Clark is just wishing that had happened. And the camera pans up as we have the conclusion of Lifehouse's Everything, which was the record to own, the album to listen to back in 2001. It was by far what I was already playing the most in my car stereo. And so, to always see it show up at the end of this episode, it was very of the time, and I love it.
love it. I love that. Okay.
Anything to add about the confrontation with Jeremy, about Clark's weird trip to the graveyard with Lana,
Oh yeah, I
or
have
the
a lot.
final dance scene?
But I think the final dance scene was one of the more epic ones. But I think all of my favorite scenes are Clark with Lana or Clark pining for Lana in the barn. So like that sets the stage for me. I love Lana's dress. I'm gonna talk about that in our what age the best. And so I thought that was beautiful and it set the scene for what is the early seasons of Smallville because that is a major theme. Like, why did we need Lois? I don't know because Lana and Clark carried this show. Um, and the fact that he was daydreaming shows that he is probably neurodivergent, and we didn't even know because there's a very vivid daydream to have.
Yeah, but there's something very admirable about him being such a hopeless romantic that he's not daydreaming of him showing up at the dance and winning Homecoming King. Maybe she'll just show up for a minute. Wouldn't that be the best? It's beautiful.
It shows you can pine. This whole show, I wrote a tribute to it like maybe 5 years ago, and I'll find that and I will read it at some point during this recap. But like the show just shows like you can pine after someone for so long, and then it can pay off, and then it can burst into flames. And I just thought that was very poetic. But
Cool. So we're going to move quickly into our lightning round, and we will begin by asking you what I think I already know the answer to. In the end, does this episode get a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
this one gets a 2 thumbs up. I
Yeah,
enjoyed that way more than I thought I would.
yeah, I
Because
think
I'm be honest with our test one, we tested Arrow just for anyone watching. We're like, let's just walk through, and I'm like, oh, is everything this bad in retrospect? But it is not.
yeah, I think it really holds
I
up.
think it's a 2 thumbs up too.
Oh, well, that's great.
This
That's
is
more thumbs. We always like more thumbs. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think this is great. What is the best quote in this episode to you?
okay. So normal. How about this? Is this normal? I'd give anything to be normal. Or I'm hanging out in a graveyard. Does it strike you as okay behavior? I just those were it for me. Those did it for me. Like, no, it does not strike me as okay behavior. Get out of the graveyard
Yeah,
at that.
I also wrote down what Lana said in response to that, which was, "Hey, I'm here too." Just because
Yeah,
I was weirded out how happy she was in that whole scene. It's like you clearly went there because you were sad. Clark's just hanging out in a graveyard. What a fun night. Yeah, but I think both of those work. Um, I really liked when Lex asked him, Clark, do you believe a man can fly? Because he supposedly had some sort of dream during the car crash that he saw himself flying or maybe Clark flying. It doesn't make sense, but it's a nice tip of the hat to the Superman movie catchphrase, which was "You will believe a man can fly." I like that one, but I like the wood chipper quote probably the best. I'm with you. You know, we all want to be normal. Who knows what that even means? But that's a very relatable thing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the wood chipper quote wins out. Mariah,
Okay.
in the pilot episode of Smallville, what aged the best?
It is Lana's dress. Like someone would wear that today. Like the corset top. Like I literally had like a corset top with like my wedding dress like 4 months ago. Like that dress, I would pick it up and wear it right now. And I don't be like, oh, look at me being retro. No, like it was perfection. Also, I have three. I'm sorry, I may be the one that takes this. So Clark's abs, they are timeless. It's fine. But then also my real answer is looking down at his phone caused a wreck because is that not like the timeless cell phone safety in a vehicle? And now people actually have phones in their cars with them, not just like people rich like Lex. And so to be like, oh yeah, don't look at your phone. You could hit Superman and run him off a bridge. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I would run Superman off a bridge to get saved by Tom Welling, but also I digress. So
Oh
anyway,
yeah.
that's mine. That's mine.
Those are all good. Those are all good. Um, for me, I'm not sure what aged the best. I just think the overall look of it, like the cinematography or how it's color graded or whatever, it looks fantastic. So many shows today look gray and dull and washed out and desaturated. This looks beautiful,
Smallville
especially
is
the
vibrant.
outside scenes where he's like late for the bus. It looks better than most movies I've seen. It really holds up, I think, visually.
It does. It does. Smallville is vibrant and beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And then in contrast, maybe we don't want to end in such a negative way, but it's all we have time for. What aged the worst?
Okay,
Besides Clark creeping at his neighbor with a telescope, which
so
is
it's
maybe
definitely
my vote.
Chloe's hairstyle. Chloe's hairstyle for the dance, age the worst. But then also Lana's dad's joke about being sad about a guy definitely would not fly today. And so I would say that one aged the worst because they wouldn't be allowed to do that.
Yeah. You know, it was very much of its time if you watch like reruns of Friends or old episodes of any show from that era. But she even says something like, "My dad has a weird, twisted sense of humor."
Yeah, twisted. Yeah, yep.
Gay panic. The worst thing Clark could be
Is
is somebody who doesn't like girls. Yeah, that I'm sure got a big laugh in my dorm room
there
in
we go.
2001. But now they would edit that
Yeah.
out.
And
So
truth is, I probably wouldn't have, it wouldn't have stuck out to me unless I knew I was like, okay, what age the worst? And I'm like, that hairstyle is real bad. But I also think the joke has to have a moment.
the other thing that I don't know if it aged the worst, but it drove me crazy is on the wall of weird. Um, there's young Lana, and she's on the cover of Time magazine.
Like, can you like that's a close up of a minor's face? Like, I'm trying to like think like journalism ethics. Like, can you do that?
Like, I
Like,
guess if her guardian signed the rights,
okay, but
but
no,
you know,
would
it's very clearly like, oh, your parents have just died. Some local, I guess the
not.
Inquisitor sent a photo
Is
to Time
not there in
magazine,
time.
and
Is
she's on the cover of
really
Time, and nobody says like, "Hey, sorry about your parents, but at least you got to be on the cover of Time magazine."
yeah. That was that
She
struck a
could have
chord
been
in
on
me.
the cover of a magazine you've never heard of,
Yeah.
and I don't know that the aged the worst, but it really bothered me for some reason
It bothered me. It bothered
because
me
it
as
should
well.
have made her more of like a local celebrity or
Yeah.
something to me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
There are plenty of other things that we didn't talk about. The fencing scene I thought was really cool. Um, I thought it was sort of a funny in joke that Lionel has made Lex in charge of um, fertilizer factories. Like, oh, you literally have a crap job. How great for you, Lex. Look what your father has done. So I have a big question that I
Okay.
just didn't get to ask during the recap, and I'm very confused. I've seen this pilot, I would say probably half a dozen times or more in life, and I'm very confused that they didn't know that Clark was like superhumanly strong or invincible-ish because he knows he can outrun the school bus when he misses the bus. But Jonathan, like you mentioned, was so stressed about him putting his hand in the wood chipper, and he Clark is so confused when he comes out of that car crash without a scratch on him because he was like,
Because like
if you
think
hit me, I
about
wouldn't be alive. They didn't know. This doesn't come up at any point beforehand that he didn't like fall down the stairs as a toddler or I don't know, hit his thumb with a hammer or
you're right, because he's not on a farm. I really can't write because sometimes to me I'm like,
right.
okay,
If he wasn't on the
well,
farm and his dad was an
yeah,
accountant, nothing but love if your dad is an accountant. Don't read too much into that. But yeah, if he's on a farm, he's gonna get hurt.
yeah.
Only it's Clark, so he's not going to.
And hurt to a degree. And so, like, have you tested it? How had they tested it to this extreme? So again, he's learning different things about himself. So
Right,
he might know, like, hey, like I can take a punch and I'm fine. I've been kicked by a horse once and I was okay. But
right.
kicked by a horse is a different level of he's like, okay, I'm already a freak. I know this. But then he's like, a whole Porsche hit me at like 100 miles an hour and I'm alive. And then his dad's like, okay, I know he can hit himself with a hammer and he's fine, but like a wood chipper and hammer are two different things. And so it may just be as like this plays into they're discovering the length to which his powers go.
So
And that's the whole like
it's just so much more than they thought.
yeah. And those are
Okay,
two extremes.
that makes sense
Like,
to me.
hey, like maybe he's okay, but also maybe he lost at least a pinky in the wood chipper. Well, you don't want to lose a pinky either. So like yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we want him to keep all of his fingers. It's literally your parent. Like, isn't that your number one job that they keep all their fingers and toes like while they're in your care? Like,
So I guess because of what you said, that makes more sense to me. But when the big reveal was that he could not get hurt, were they just sort of like um, Dash's parents in The Incredibles? He couldn't try out for football because he runs so fast? Was that why he couldn't play football? You know what can happen, son.
but, they knew that a kid would come at him as football people do, and he wasn't going to go down. And so that everyone was going to try to figure out why doesn't this kid go down and then start watching him. The idea is he's an unassuming farm boy, so no one has an eye on him. So like you can know there's something with him without being like he can take a hit from a Porsche. Like those are two different things, a 260-pound high school boy versus a Porsche. It to me it makes sense for what we're doing with Smallville is we are slowly discovering what he can do.
Right.
So okay, this is
It's the you can't play football part of it that confused me.
because if a linebacker, is that how that works, runs and hits
Yes.
him with a head, no,
Yep.
I don't want sports. If he goes like this and instead of going down, Clark's just like and then attacks him or whatever you do, like you're not going to like people are gonna question. Or Clark gets the ball and then he's just down the field. And teenage boys aren't known for being super rational, I think. Like anyway, you had a thought that seemed really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was looking up notes to look at my sort of own recap notes, it mentioned the scene where Clark like daydreams himself playing football, and this is not on the version that I streamed. It's not on any version that I remember watching on television. But it is on the like old school DVD version of the show. And there's also a scene that they've edited out on Disney Plus or Hulu for streaming where he comes out of the dance. He's really annoyed at Whitney and he stacks several trucks on top of each other out of frustration. And they all come out of the dance and they're like, who did this to my truck? But clearly in the edit, I don't know if it's Warner Brothers, I don't know if it's the showrunners, but they wanted Clark to not take this sort of frustrated route, nor do they want him to imagine anything other than Lana. But those
You
scenes
can
are
the
out there.
DVD.
They're on YouTube if you want to search them, but they're also on the old school
I'm
DVD
gonna rewatch the DVD
versions.
Because that, like, for your question, Kent Farm wisdom, that actually comes into play. And I realized I answered that question sitting there reflecting on an episode, and I saw something that didn't happen because in my head that fully happened. So, but I realized you're correct. The Hulu version. So I will be watching. I have my old school DVDs. This is my first place I've lived that they haven't been on display. They're in a closet, but I will be getting them out. And we just hooked up a VCR for home videos yesterday, and I
There
will
you
be
go.
watching on the DVD part.
But
Okay. Anyway.
because I got really mad at like I think it was that fandom that I was looking at. I was like, someone has edited this and they have included a scene that doesn't really exist. And so I go back and watch Clark going from the dance to being in the barn at the end, and there's no trucks stacked on Disney Plus Hulu, but there is in real life at one point that
Yeah, the
scene
trucks are
is a part of
stacked.
the
Like
show.
that's part of my, yeah, don't ask me the Kent Farm wisdom because that's part of it.
Another difficult question, and then we will get to that Kent Farm wisdom. Parenting is hard. Anybody who has ever witnessed a parent at a distance will tell you that. But I was curious if if you adopted a child
Mhm.
as an alien from outer space at age 3, when is the right time to tell them that your parents aren't from around here? Because Clark seems very upset that they have waited to tell him. But I think you kind of have to wait until the situation presents itself. When you're sort of backed into a corner and you got to play all your cards, or what analogy you want to use, cliche you want to use. But that is my question for you. When's the right time to tell your kid you're an alien from? Well, they don't know he's from Krypton yet, but that you're from another planet. We found you in a cornfield in a spaceship.
Right around when they did, because truth is, if you tell a 9-year old boy he is an alien and then he's at school and he's hanging out with his friends and they're debating if aliens are real, I personally was never a 9-year old boy, but I probably been like, aliens are real, you dumb person. Like, I am here. So I don't think you can give a 9-year old boy that kind of information. I don't think you can give. I mean, I think 15 is risky, but they present Clark as a very mature 15. So, but most of 15-year-old boys that I know, I also wouldn't trust with that kind of information.
Right.
It would get
Right.
them taken to a lab to be experimented on for the rest of their life. Like, mm, so I think that was probably the best timing. But Clark is gonna be mad because it's like anytime, like people who have like closed adoptions and don't tell their kids they're adopted, whatever their reasoning is, they whenever they tell their kids, it's too late. Like it's
Right.
always too late. Even if it's like I'm gonna tell them on their 16th birthday, their kids like, how dare you keep this from me? Well, we needed to keep it from you, whatever their reasoning is. I'm not saying I advocate for that. I've never adopted a kid to know, but like it's always the wrong time. You're a parent. When's the last time you did anything like right in their eyes? Like
Right.
right, like, that's they was darned if you do, darned if you don't. So
Absolutely. And
yeah.
you're just trying to do the best you can. Because in that scene, Jonathan says, "We were just trying to protect you." Clark is really upset and adamant, as you would be as the adopted one, saying, "Protect me from what? You should have told me."
Yeah,
But I don't think they should have told him.
they should not have.
I think
They
they
were
made the right call.
yeah.
So that was my big question. Um, let's move on to a different segment of the lightning round, since that was not very lightning. But I just had to ask those questions. I just needed to know what you thought. I feel
Yeah.
better now. Um, the Kent Farm wisdom question, which asks, what does the episode teach us about character or hope or responsibility or truth or something like that?
I think for me, probably the biggest thing is like Clark saved Lex. Whereas if Clark let Lex die, the Superman universe would be a very much simpler place. So, and his life would have been simpler. But even in retrospect, I think Clark is the kind of guy that would have saved Lex, period. And I think you've got to do the right thing no matter what. Um, Also, I don't know why I did in my head that stacking scene happened on Hulu. And that is there. And so
Maybe
Karma,
it did.
I,
Maybe it
I
did.
don't think it did. I don't think it did. It just did in my head. But because karma is a bad word. And I think they should have kept that because that is what you learned that you're going to be a bully and you might get your truck stacked together by Superman. Um, so those are my two Kent Farm wisdoms that I take. But you probably have something more profound than what I do.
I really don't. I really don't. I think this is really an episode more about Clark trying to figure himself out, and there's not a big takeaway other than don't accept a free gift like a free truck. There's probably some strings attached. Maybe there's that wisdom there. And
Okay.
we'll say this is our last question for this recording. The wall of weird question. What a fun way to end it. What mystery deserves further investigation? Or, if you don't like the question phrased that way, how do we feel about this week's Freak of the Week?
Okay, the
Jeremy.
coma thing started because age. That was already a problem. And I don't really know how comas work, okay? But I
Chloe
don't think it
does.
just
Chloe does.
deserves you.
Chloe is just like,
And that also
hey,
goes
hey
into my
everybody,
journalism.
here's how a coma works. She's
And
very
like
knowledgeable.
he should have aged. And so it should have been he should have been studied further. Maybe he was, and we just didn't get the test results. I don't know. But I think someone at some point should have been like, this kid in a coma is not aging, and he probably should be aging, and he's not, and this is an issue. Which I also think you did not ask me this question, but it goes into, if applicable, what would a journalist have done differently? Interview Jeremy's family and friends. Like, you can go investigate all you want, but you got to start with your primary sources. So, like, as you are trying to unravel the mystery, maybe start with his mama. I don't know. She knows a lot about the kid.
Because initially I thought, well, maybe he doesn't have family. But after he sort of snaps out of it, or how you want to interpret that ending with the truck, he tells Clark, I want to go home,
Yeah. Home
which
would be
means he has a home to go to. And
ordinary people. Interview class, like you would. Chloe would have interviewed better than Chloe interviewed. I get she's an investigative journalist. I've never really been one of those, but I have done journalism enough to know like you were missing some like low hanging fruit there to figure out who this kid was. Elsie, stop grilling. Sorry, my dog
so,
is.
in light of him not aging, I do wonder from like a TV production standpoint, if it was too complicated to cast someone to be, a different actor to be him 12 years older, or if they had trouble figuring out how to make that actor look 26 or 28, however old he's supposed to be 12 years later.
Because that was part of
Instead
it.
their solution is he doesn't age. I think
No,
it's way
because that was
easier to give him like a bad haircut or
mm-mm.
something
No,
and say
that
he's
would
12
make
years
sense.
older.
Because that's why the guy's like, you haven't aged, like, and then he does whatever to him. So I think that's part of the freak of the week part is that he didn't age. He was preserved in that time.
But that doesn't happen to any other freaks of the week that I recall.
No, it does not, but for that one, it does. And that's how because he has to make that 12-year age jump. The other ones don't
Right,
have to make that thing.
because of his too many electrolytes or not enough electrolytes, or Chloe says it like super quick. Like we can't pause and think about her explanation of why he's still alive, let alone not aging. She does drop a rationale. Chloe, just a phenomenal character to not exist in any Superman lore. She's immediately engaging. She was probably my favorite character when I watched this back in 2001.
I
Um,
didn't know she didn't exist in a super because we'll talk about this later. But Superman's arc is Smallville. I was a Smallville purist. I did not watch a Superman until after Smallville was over. We'll circle back. Circle back.
we'll circle back to that. I want to hear about that for sure. Let's see. Anything else you want to add? I think those were most of our questions.
I'm good. I think we got it this time.
I think so. I think we're good. I think the next episode is, having not watched it recently, I think it's going to be a downgrade
Yes.
because they spent, I know for sure, several weeks making the pilot, and then about 2 weeks or less making the rest of the episodes for season one. So they had less time, less money. And so I don't think they're all going to be as much of a winner as this one, but this was great.
It was. It was. Two thumbs up for real.
So we want to be sure and thank you for joining us for this first episode of Torch Talk. We're going to try to do this almost every week, but thank you so much for joining us. Anything you want to add, Mariah, as we close?
No, this has been so much fun. Again, I'm so excited. I'm excited just to rewatch it and like rewatch it critically because I don't
Yeah,
always watch shows critically. I'm a very passive show watcher, and so this has been fun to like type out my notes as I'm like honed in, and like I am going to critically think about Smallville. It's been pretty great.
yeah, and you like it probably better for it. I hope.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed this first episode. Thoroughly enjoyed that.
Great, great, great. I do think this pilot as a whole really works. If you're going to show somebody, a random person, an episode of Smallville, you could show them this first episode, and if they don't like this one, it's probably not for them. But so many shows, The
That's true.
Office comes to mind, do not have a good pilot episode. This, I think, really does.
Yeah. It shows you where we're going with it the whole time. Like you watch this and you're like, Superman is finding out who he is and developing his powers, and you can get that from the first episode.
Absolutely. I love it.